Blood. Especially this time of year, blood has a creepy connotation, but it's actually this simple thing that we need to live. Blood carries oxygen and nutrients to the cells in the body and carries waste from those cells to the kidneys. It's a beautiful thing when we have it and can hold on to it, which becomes difficult if the blood is being purposefully taken away from us. Blood donation is a controlled science-based process, but what about bloodletting? We mostly know about bloodletting as it was practiced in Europe from the Middle Ages up to the 19th century, when medicine was a blend of misguided alchemy practices and some actual anecdotal success, mostly from placebo effect. Bloodletting was practiced as a cure-all treatment, with various techniques being arbitrarily alternated. For instance, when Charles II, King of Scotland in the 1600s, suffered a seizure, he was first treated with 16 ounces of bloodletting from the left arm, followed by 8 ounces using cupping, a glass blood pump. Then he was made to purge from both ends, just to finally bleed him again from a jugular this time. He basically underwent a series of tortures, was bled about 24 ounces, and died 4 days later, probably from kidney failure. Now, bloodletting itself wasn't deadly on its own because in order to bleed somebody to death, you need to remove 40 to 50% of blood volume, or about 3 or 4 times more than what was extracted from poor Charles. And because blood is regenerative, it needs to happen quickly and continuously. When that happens, the heart loses its ability to pump blood and deliver oxygen to cells. Starved of oxygen, cells are starting to die, and when blood stops reaching the brain, a once sentient being becomes no longer sentient. This happens with other centuries-old bleeding rituals. Going back to the Bronze Age, both humans and animals were sacrificed to the gods and their blood spilled on altars for the purpose of achieving fertility, purification, atonement. The gods seem to like blood a lot. And who can blame them? Bleeding to death is very spiritual. Today, human sacrifices are the subject of cheap horror films, but animal sacrifices are still happening all around the world. Once a year, several Jewish sects practice atonement by having a chicken passed over their heads 3 times to transfer God's judgment from the person to the chicken, who is then decapitated and bled to death. In Islam, sheep are sacrificed and bled to commemorate Ibrahim, who was willing to honor Allah by sacrificing his son Ismail. In some parts of India, animals are sacrificed to pacify the terrifying forms of the Devi goddess. Animals are decapitated and their blood is smeared on the post outside the temple. But the most common blood draining is done to animals undergoing non-ritualistic death. Slaughterhouses all over the world kill animals by draining their blood. It's the most widespread slaughter technique. It's also considered a humane way to kill. Allow me to quote from the Humane Slaughter Society. To prevent the risk of recovery, animals must be bled as soon as possible after stunning, ideally whilst still in the rigid phase. Bleeding involves severing the carotid arteries and jugular veins, or the blood vessels from which they arise. The animal then dies from loss of blood. It is important that all major blood vessels are severed. If only one carotid artery is cut, the animal may take over a minute to die. This method has a double purpose. An efficient method of killing with minimal intervention. I mean, imagine if slaughterhouse workers would have to choke the cows to death. That takes several minutes and constant pressure needs to be applied. The second purpose is preservation. Blood is a very good medium for bacteria growth. This makes me wonder, what happens to the millions of pints of blood that are spilled in thousands of slaughterhouses around the world? Perhaps we'll explore this question in a future video. Bleeding should be carried out by an incision made with a sharp knife in the jugular furrow at the base of the neck, the knife being directed toward the entrance of the chest to sever all the major blood vessels arising from the heart. In the interest of good hygiene, two knives should be used, the first to open the skin and the second to sever the blood vessels. This procedure is often referred to as sticking.